Hey cats, it's your Midsole man Eddbud back with a 100-mile review today on the HOKA CIELO X1. This is a shoe that I picked up with my own cash way back in February of 2024. Finally reached that 100-mile or 160-kilometer mark, and I'm bringing you my updated views on this one. Upper fit, midsole resilience, and the outsole traction. I've got to talk value with this one, it being one of the most expensive running shoes from HOKA. Let's get right into it. Thanks for joining me once again on the channel. Help me to reach my goal of 1 million subscribers. You know, we're quite a way off yet, but an extra 1 or 2 always helps. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. Also drop us a comment to help with the YouTube algorithm as well to get it out to more runners. Danke. So, purchased these myself for about £250. Ouch. Gotta be honest, I think it's a little bit overpriced, this shoe. 250 smackaroonies is a lot of money, especially when there's lots of other models out there that are just a little bit more nimble, a little bit lighter. Have been enjoying running in this one though from HOKA. In fact, the HOKA shoes over the past year or so have really knocked me out. There's been some really good releases. Really improving their midsoles. Upper fit first on this one at 100 miles. So this one, fit-wise, is as good as any of the HOKAs I've tried out recently. A better, much more appropriate amount of upper material here in the CIELO X1. This strange knit-like stuff that they've used here is quite well structured in fairness, and it does house the foot very well. The laces, perhaps the only weird sticking point here. Still haven't quite got used to them. I think you really need something this rigid as they are to get a good lock over the top of the foot, because they are doing most of the donkey work. The tongue is partially gusseted here, but it really doesn't hold the foot into the shoe all that much like the Alpha Fly 3 does, for example. I believe they did change the laces up on other colorways of this shoe, which does tell you something. I don't think they're bad. They certainly do the job, that's for sure, on this pair, but they're somewhat tough to deal with. Quite a lot of excess lace, and you've got to sort of bury it underneath the laces themselves to keep it out of the way and stop it flailing around. Easy to get a good lockdown though with the stock laces. Surprisingly, the upper's really quite clean. It's quite easy to clean if you've got like a medium bristle brush. You can rub off most of the debris and dirt that might accumulate on here. I've got no wear whatsoever anywhere on the shoe, especially in the rear section here. In the heel, the padding around the ankle here does fine. I've not had any sort of rubbing or discomfort whatsoever. So yeah, I do quite like the fact it's come out looking real clean after 100 miles. I haven't really babied the shoe whatsoever. Some of the mesh models from Adidas or the Flyknit ones from Nike, you just can't get dirt out of those. Once it's there, they are just knackered. Long runs too haven't showed up any major issues in terms of upper comfort, though when used in wet conditions this knit material really does take on quite a lot of water and moisture, so I'm going to lower my upper score a little bit from the initial one I gave it, a 2.7 this time around. I imagine the apparent thinner and lighter V2 version of the shoe will resolve perhaps the material and lace issues. Midsole now. Midsole wise, this one's good for marathon kind of tempo pace, I suppose, but I don't really think I'd select it for like a half marathon or especially the 10k or 5k distances. There's just too much midsole here really for that, and it is quite a controlling shoe. It wants you to run in a certain way. Once you've got your head around it, I think it works quite well, but it certainly wants you to engage this heel section of the shoe pretty much the whole time, sort of rolling through it. If you're a mid to forefoot striker exclusively, then yeah, it's just not really the shoe for you, I don't think. It's mainly the curve of the shoe here, that rocker that HOKA use in a lot of their models, wants you to roll through it onto the forefoot. I think you've got to kind of do that to get the best out of the CIELO X1. There is some considerable bounce though to this PEBA based midsole material they're using here. It does come in around about Shore A20, which is very, very soft. It does seem to be dependent though on the area of the shoe that you test. So maybe different formulas are used in different sections of the shoe here. Can't really confirm or deny that. Either way, the new formula they're using here is certainly up to scratch and compares to some of the top models that we all know of. I think if you're looking for like a more stable version of a super shoe, then the CIELO X1 might be right up your street. You have, of course, got the wings present here, and of course on the other side too. And I did like the very compressive squash that you get in the heel area, which is hollowed out quite a fair bit. I did get a few much larger stones caught up in there, so do be a bit wary on that. I think my major issue with this shoe, yes, there's a lot of midsole material and surface area here, but when you got a shoe that's like 300 grams, that's pretty heavy in my UK 11, US 11.5. When you think the Zoomfly 6 is about 100 quid cheaper than this one, and I would suggest you've got a comparable or even higher midsole stack in that shoe, I'd suggest it's better at tempo and like half marathon pace as well for me, rather than the CIELO X1. So I like the midsole for very specific paces, almost like slower speeds I guess, but it certainly wouldn't be my first choice midsole for racing. There's just many other models that appear above that in terms of like performance, like cushion and rebound. I'll give it a 2.7 out of 3 for the midsole. I think it's great, but perhaps not the best for me. Trying to think for other runners here, and there's probably a lot of people out there that will absolutely love the midsole qualities here. Outsole now. Outsole wise, HOKA have gone for a different approach here. There's a lot more rubber, lots of ridges here. The actual thickness of that rubber is quite considerable too, and I found it to be an excellent performer in terms of multi-surface traction and weather conditions as well. It ran really well in wet weather. Just seems to stick to the ground regardless of what's going on. Got absolutely soaked once and it still carried on going. HOKA outsoles in the past have been a little bit hit and miss for me. They're either really resilient like the Rocket X2 or a bit absent as the Rincon was, when it just sort of disappears after a few runs. The CIELO X1 very short in wet weather conditions. Not a shoe that I think I'd want to take out, you know, for trail running, or if you're running in an area with lots of debris on the ground. There's a lot of holes here and you do get little rocks and twigs caught up, and as I mentioned earlier, you're likely to get some stones or something lodged in this section back here. In terms of rubber degradation, there's a tiny bit of wear around the sort of midfoot area here, almost nothing back here in the heels, a tiny little bit of wear in the lateral side of the heel, but that's it. Even the exposed midsole material is absolutely fine. A little bit discoloured, but there's no damage to it whatsoever. You have got quite the bevel here on the lateral side of the heel, as you do with some of the Adizero models from Adidas, and as expected, there's not quite as much wear as I would expect in some other shoes where you've got a slightly more flat kind of surface. The midsole cutout at the back here is quite hard to access. If you do want to clean that, you're going to need some sort of spatula or like a pipe cleaner or something along those lines. Not that the shoe's really designed for like gravel or anything like that, but if you're running on the sides of roads, especially here in the UK where there's quite a camber, you're going to end up with lots of stones and they'll be perfectly sized to get lodged in these holes. Still a great showing here though for the outsole over 100 miles, so I'll give it a 2.8 out of 3. Value, as you probably picked up, this isn't really the super shoe for everybody. I think if you're like a feather-light gazelle, then it's probably just a little bit too much shoe here. Though I've noticed there are some discount prices on these now, around about 150 quid, down from 250, which is a massive saving. I think that makes the shoe a little bit more attractive. So not the most versatile over different paces, especially in that upper range, and the heavier weight might put off some of the super fast beasts that are going for the sub 3 hour marathons, when you consider that the Metaspeed Sky Paris is like a good 100 grams lighter than this. Even the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3 comes in much lighter and cheaper too. I think the proof in the pudding with a shoe like this is in the long run. Whilst the shoe is certainly very cushioned, you may start to detect that it's a little bit heavier than the rest as you get further into that, you know, the magic mile 20, for example, where the marathon really starts. So a bit of an odd shoe from HOKA. I'm not entirely sure what they're going for here. Is it like a trainer? Is it a racer? I think after 100 miles, my conclusion is super trainer, I suppose. A bit of an option like the Prime X or something, but with much less stack here. I think at the price I paid, it's a little bit steep. Well, very steep, in fact. Though the shoe out the box is quality. There's no dodgy stitching or anything like that. I haven't had to sub out any elements of it, which is really nice for a change. I'm going to give this a 2.6 out of 3 for value, just purely on the retail price. I think it's really high. When you got much lighter shoes, even like the On Cloud Boom Strike, coming in at around about the same price, I think that's a better race shoe if you're a lighter runner. Perhaps if you're a more heavy set runner, then you might get a lot more out of this one. That aside, I know loads of people that have tried this shoe out and it's one of their favourites of the year, so what do I know? I think it's very much down to preference with running shoes as usual. That's certainly the case with the CIELO X1. Just wish the upper was a little bit lighter. Maybe they could refine the outsole somewhat as well. Perhaps they'll do that in this CIELO X1 version 2 that's coming out. Why don't they just call it the CIELO X2? Have you been enjoying this one from HOKA or any of their lineup? Did it not quite work for you? Let us know down in the comments. Very quick musical interlude for you. I forgot one of my favourite hip-hop Christmas tracks, Christmas in Hollis by Run DMC. Classic jingle bells to start off with. There's some great scratching here. Clearly the whole thing's been recorded to tape and they've added the bits in as and when needed. Great beats, really smooth kind of brass section going along with the instrumental. I love the first verse as well. You know, Run DMC always on the right side of the moral path. Kind of comes across Santa and he's lost his wallet, so he tries to return the wallet to Santa. There's loads of money in there. He posts it back to him, and when he gets home, Santa's left him loads of cash underneath the Christmas tree, you know, for doing the right thing. I mean, that's, you know, teaching kids to be the good person. I mean, you wouldn't steal from Santa, would you? That's just dreadful. Some real big banging beats, and of course with Run DMC tracks I always keep the instrumental to a sort of minimum, really just the minimal elements required, so the voices come through really nicely. You know, and some of the best hip-hop and rap acts are doing that right now. Think Kendrick Lamar with his latest album. It's just kept really minimal so you can hear all the lyrics. Go and check it out. It's not too late, you know, we're still around the Christmas festive time. Christmas in Hollis by Run DMC. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Please do hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. Drop us a comment to help with the algorithm as well. My name's Eddbud and I'll be seeing you